Interestingly enough, I'm just checking the stats here now that you're mentioning it. I mean, to try and check this out real quick, but Electronic is actually the bottom rated player.
He hasn't had a very good last few tournaments, but here's the thing. When he first began as IGL, which was the last spring fight, he was flagging out of control. First few tournaments, he was doing great, mate. So I don't blame it. He also might just individually be on a slot. Let's be real, a bunch of NaVi's not as good as they were.
Yeah, no, right, but the point still stands. Like he, when he's one of your top 3 rated players on a team full of fraggers like Bit and Electronic, I mean Bit and Simple, like you're competing with those guys, Perfecto, like you're competing with those guys for kills, and you're still up there as the IGL. It just makes me think that Blade has really figured it out. He's got the game figured out. He's clearly got a system, and this is the thing, you have to buy into his system, and so he's had years to work with these players now. To answer your question about why other teams don't have it, I think it's because they don't have a Blade. They don't have somebody who has been through as much of an experience as Blade has. Keep in mind, Blade has been around since what, like the beginning of 1.6 almost? Like the guy has just lived and breathed Counter-Strike for 15 plus years. So he's seen it all. He's played all the roles. He's done it all. So like, who actually, I'm putting you on the spot here, actually, a little bit, but if you were to try and go for a Western player, like a Western equivalent, is Zonic that kind of equivalent, or do you think about somebody else who could potentially?
No, because here's the problem: Zonic himself wasn't an IGL; he was sort of like the secondary caller or whatever. So the real problem is there isn't anyone in the West actually. Like, if people don't know, Carrigan himself wasn't even like a proper IGL basically in 1.6. The closest, if he was still around, would be someone like a GOUD, I guess. But even GOUD didn't play as long into 1.6. So like that, you have to go for someone like that. That's the sort of like equivalent you could maybe pick out, because there's another person who always had like massive impact on his teams, great mind for the game, figured out all the different matches. There's not many though. Blade, people don't know, Blade really is some like fucking Gandalf type character. He really is. Through all eras of Counter-Strike, he never disappears ever. It's amazing, isn't he?
Dude, I'm loving it too, because his English is getting better and better. So I'm looking forward to a new interview. Like, you got to get him in there, man, because the last interview you did with him was terrific. It was right when Simple was when they were trying to start getting Simple under his wing, but it was
just before they got really good.
Talk honestly about Simple. There was clearly some difficulties there still with Simple getting him into integrate in, and so that was a fascinating interview to listen to. I loved it. So I hope that you're going to be able to get him on again soon, because now his English is even better. And he's got even more experience.
Yeah, I can tell people. I've talked to Blade privately like a bunch of times, and he is someone where, like, the better his English gets, they're going to be amazing interviews, guys. Like, it reminds me in League of Legends, there used to be a guy like this. There was a jungler called Diamond Prox who played for Gambit, funnily enough, in Moscow 5, if people remember. And this guy was, you could tell from the way he played, like some genius level player. And all I'll tell you is, over the years, I did like maybe 3 interviews with him, right? And because each interview was like 3 or 4 years apart, the last one I'm going to say was like, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago now. By the end, dude, when he was like 6, 7 years in, dude, his English got really good. And you realize, like, holy shit, that was right. Like, once you can actually like express yourself, you can unlock all that genius. So I know from some private conversations, Blade can go way deeper than he does in those like on-camera interviews with like Heku or fucking Freya or whatever. He gives very simple answers there. And also, by the way, because he's old school and he is like a chess player, he's not going to give you real info. That's why when he tells you shit in interviews, like, we're practicing vertical, that's part of his fucking chess game, mate. Like, he's not really giving away what they're doing. Like, so the other thing is, you're going to need to do it like that as well, where it's like an interview where you can reflect back on stuff. Because he's not going to tell you right now how they run the team. But the key thing for me, Semmler, is maybe in 2 years I could find out how this team ran and how he swapped it from Boomich to Electronic. That'll be when it's interesting. I agree. I bet there's a fascinating story.
Oh, there must be. But I mean, it's why I never really... People were like, oh no, what are they going to do without Boomich on the team? I was like, dude, they're going to be perfectly fine.
It seemed like the most slam dunk team of all time to survive. Exactly.
And I still think it's possible to turn it around here, even though they're in a little bit of a dip right now. It's going to be really interesting to see how they finish out this year, and starting into next one when they actually settle on a roster. Now we're just going into a NaVi tangent, and we might as well go into a bit of a NaVi tangent because they are competing in Blast right now, and they did have a strong start over Fluxo, but I mean that was a given that they were going to have a strong start over Fluxo. There wasn't really any big shock there. Fluxo got annihilated by G2 as well today, so Fluxo are out, predictably so. I don't think that shocks anybody, but it's nice that NaVi had an easy game to get started with, and now they're as we're recording this, they're tied 1-1 with Liquid. So Liquid had to really go hard on the first map of this series, Inferno, win at 16-14, but now Dust 2 went the way of NaVi. So it's interesting to see that NaVi are still hanging in here, because Liquid are going to be prepared for this NaVi team. They're going to be really dialed in, and they're going to be hungry. So it's not going to be an easy winners match by any stretch for NaVi, but it looks like NaVi at least are fighting back here.
That's impressive because I heard that actually most of the morning, Yekindar had the guys on a really strict schedule where he was showing them how to put their trousers on, breathe air, and then fucking like take in like fucking like nutrients out of food and stuff. So he didn't even, you have to understand, they're so limited at Team Look. He hadn't even got a chance to get to the blackboard and start making his notes, you know, like. In fact, the joke is Yekindar's knowledge about the game is so deep and powerful. He's like the old school Catholic Church. He doesn't even allow Team Liquid players to read. Then it's too holy for them. His information, his thing of no equivalent of like Blade shit is like his like diary, and he doesn't allow anyone access to that. But he just gives you a gem every now and then, like in Latin, of course, like and you have to you just have to intuit what Yekindar meant by it, because Yekindar is just some like fucking saintly figure, obviously.
He said in his words, he says it himself, he has to do it because he wants to win, you know, otherwise.
I saw you like that tweet I did where it was like, it leaves, takes a breath, Yekindar's like, that's what I do that, like, yeah, that's like how far these interviews feel like they've gone now, didn't it? Like, because the thing I don't get is this, that storyline shouldn't even be alive anymore, guys, because the team he left just won the fucking major. They won it without him. Like, what does he... I'm being serious, guys. What does this guy know about Counter-Strike that I'm missing? Because as far as I can tell, he's just a really skilled young player that has an interest in mind for entry, but that's about it. I don't know where this... I really don't get it, Semmler, as to why people treat him like he's like prime Zipnix, who knows like every angle and calculate. Like, what are they talking about? Like, he's just a really good player. That's it. Like, I think that angle's gone too far now.
He's played listen, 4 maps. His role... 1.7 rating.
Like I said, runner-up with a his role, he is mega, but I actually find it insulting, the idea he's implying that he's teaching like Nitro and Elige how Counter-Strike works. Like, homie, they could stop tomorrow and they will play more finals and win more trophies than you ever will in your whole life. Like, they don't have to do anything more in their career to prove themselves. Like, it's just like, that just shows, by the way, I'm going to call out so that I normally never call out. That's actually like bias against NA, dude. Because what people are trying to imply is because NA hasn't been on top for a while, that people like Elite, super legendary players are like morons who don't know how Counter-Strike works or something like. That's not why they're not winning, for fuck's sake. Like, spoiler, you know, their team has like Nitro, who's got terrible stats, Orsi, who's average as fuck. That's 2 of their members of their team. Now then go look at like FaZe Clan. Now, like, these teams are full of bangers, mate. Like, I don't think it's anything to do with not knowing Counter-Strike that's caused them to lose. Like, they're just not as good a team. And even then, as you say, they're not a bad team. Team Look is a pretty solid squad. They're what, like the 6th best team or something? They're pretty legit.
Yeah, no, they can hit hard. I mean, Yekinder creates enormous opportunities for him with this entering, and they know how to play off of it now as well. So maybe that's another reason why he's maybe taking credit, because it's like, because he is there to give those opportunities, the team benefits, and so he feels like this is what he's bringing to the table, and so he is making that difference in their game plan. Well, good on him. Fine. I mean, if you have a 1.7 rating on 4 maps for opening kills, holy shit, you know, that's
yeah, of course,
that's crazy numbers. Those are crazy numbers. That's insanely high. So if you're opening the round up and getting the man advantage for your team that often, it's like, okay, fine, fair enough. You deserve a pat on the head for that, for sure. Big reason why Liquid may be competitive right now, because Elige is still finding his footing. Him and NAF are kind of hanging around, doing their thing as well, not dropping off the way we saw in the major. Thankfully, they're definitely hitting a bit harder here in this tournament. But you know, as far as Liquid are concerned, it still feels like a stretch for them to beat a team like NaVi, where SDY has got something to prove. I mean, they're talking about bringing in a player. I mean, already this tournament, as I understand it, Nipple is at the tournament now, and if they play. Shoot, what was the map off the top of my head? I think it was Vertigo or Ancient.
I mean, that's what Vertigo's the one that's a permaban. You mean, are they going to test him out on the permaban?
I think they were going to test him out on the permaban. Right. Or something. There was some scenario where
that makes sense.
He would step in for a map if it gets played. If NaVi end up playing that map, he's ready to play it, and otherwise he's going to be stepping in the World Finals coming up in a couple of weeks for NaVi. So NaVi are taking the time to actually play around a little bit with the roster. But this tournament, at least, I mean, SDY is going to be hungry. He has to make an impact. He has to show that he deserves a spot on the team, because they've already got the replacement waiting in the wings. So I think this is a NaVi that should be overperforming, if anything, and just smash and face. What do you think?
The thing is, I actually think, like, as a team, it's basically like, I'm pretty sure, wasn't it? I don't know where this was, but I'm almost certain somewhere online in the last week or so, it was even implied that like some Dai Young's already looking for another team, or like knows he's going to be leaving the team. It was basically implied, guys. Like, I almost got the implication, even if they win, they're going to replace him. Like, they just decided.
I put it in the show notes last week. I thought that was a thing, and then it turns out it wasn't.
Oh, wasn't? Well, there's the problem. I suspect personally, unless they just stop the whole event, he will be replaced. Like, it just seems like the writing's on the wall. And also, like I said before, no one really was arguing that he was a really good player when he was kept to the team. Our argument before was because they won the Blast tournament right out of the gate. It was sort of like, well, look, if he can just do that and then not fuck everything else up. Like I say, it's a don't rock the boat move. If you can just sort of keep doing whatever the fuck you're doing, good or bad, and just let Simple and Electronic and Bit carry, then don't worry about it, we'll keep you. But actually, that isn't really grounds to have someone in a team. You have to like fulfill a certain role and fit the style of the team and all that. So I have to say, I do think it's time to replace him. I agree with you though. I actually think because in theory, if you're someday, you know it's over anyway, this is the last tournament and they're going to change players. I actually think this is probably the perfect time for Na'Vi to just sort of like have no pressure on them at all and just blow through the tournament. Like I could see them win this tournament, mate. I think it's certainly going to be strong at a minimum.
It's absolutely possible. Absolutely possible that they could pull this off.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.